Ethics and impacts of biotechnology. A science fiction movie speculated about a future world in which genetics determines people's ability to get ahead in life. In the movie, schooling, job prospects, and legal rights are rigidly determined by an analysis of the individual's DNA on the day he or she is born. Is that a good direction for society to go? What if the government wants to use an individual's DNA for another purpose, in a criminal investigation or in a paternity suit? What if health insurance providers manage their healthcare policies based on genetic predisposition to disease? Private biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies do much of the research involving GMO plants and animals. Their goal is largely to develop profitable new crops, drugs, tests, and other products. Like most inventors, they protect their discoveries and inventions with patents, a legal tool that gives an individual or company the exclusive rights to profit from its innovations for a number of years. Molecules and DNA sequences can be patented. In fact, roughly one-fifth of the known genes in the human genome are now patented commercially. This graph shows the rise in the number of nucleic acid patents between 1985 and 2005. Laboratory techniques like PCR have been patented. When a scientist wants to run a PCR test, he or she must pay a fee for the license to use this process. The ability to patent is meant to spur discovery and advancements in medicine and industry, but sometimes patent holders demand high fees that block other scientists from exploring certain lines of research. In the case of development of provitamin A enriched golden rice, patent disputes kept the rice out of the hands of farmers for years. When it comes to your own DNA, how much privacy are you entitled to? Do you have exclusive rights to your own DNA? Should you, like patent holders, be able to keep your genetic information confidential? The tomb of the unknown Arlington National Cemetery near Washington, D.C., holds the remains of unknown American soldiers who fought in our nation's wars. In order to avoid more unknown soldiers, the U.S. military now requires all personnel to give a DNA sample when they begin their service. Those DNA samples are kept on file and used, if needed, to identify the remains of individuals who perish in the line of duty. What if the government wants to use an individual's DNA sample for a criminal investigation or a paternity suit? What if the health insurance providers manage their healthcare policies based on genetic predisposition to disease? Suppose that, years after giving a DNA sample, an individual is barred from employment or rejected for health care insurance because of a genetic defect detected in the sample. Would this be a fair and reasonable use of genetic information? In 2008, the US Congress passed the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, which protects Americans against discrimination based on the genetic information. Are GMO foods safe? Currently, studies of such GMO foods have provided no scientific support for concerns about their safety, and it does seem that foods made from GMO plants are safe to eat. Farmers choose GMO crops because they produce higher yields, reducing the amount of land and energy that must be devoted to agriculture and lowering the cost of food for everyone. Insect-resistant GMO plants need little, if any, insecticides to grow successfully, reducing the chance that chemical residues will enter the food supply and lessening damage to the environment. Critics point out that no long-term studies have been made of the hazards these foods might present. Some worry that the insect resistance engineered into the GMO plants may threaten beneficial insects, killing them as well as the crop pests. Others express concern that the use of plants resistant to chemical herbicides may lead to overuse of these weed-killing compounds. Another concern is that the patents held on GMO seeds by the companies that produce them may prove costly enough to force small farmers out of business, especially in the developing world. Europe has been slow to accept GMO into their market as they are alert to health detriments from poor diet. In the US, current federal regulations treat GMO foods and non GMO foods equally. GMO foods are not required to undergo special safety testing before entering the market. No additional labeling is required to identify products as genetically modified unless its ingredients are significantly different from its conventional counterpart. The possibility that meat from GM animals may soon enter the food supply has heightened concern about labeling. As a result, some states have begun to consider legislation to require the labeling of GM foods, therefore providing consumers with an informed choice. Should genetic modifications to humans be closely regulated? Because we have the technology to modify organisms' characteristics, are we justified in doing so? Biotechnology has given us the ability to know ourselves more and more. With this knowledge, however, comes responsibility. You have seen how the GFP gene, fluorescence, can easily be extracted from a jellyfish and spliced onto genes coding for important cellular proteins. This ability has led to significant new discoveries about how cells function. The same GFP technology was used to create fluorescent zebrafish. These fish, along with fluorescent mice, tadpoles, rabbits, fish, cats, and more, have all contributed to our understanding of cells and proteins. If human cells can be manipulated to cure disease, should biologists try to engineer taller people or change their eye color, hair texture, sex, blood group, or appearance? What will happen to the human species when we gain the opportunity to design our bodies or those of our children? Will these changes have other detrimental effects? What would be the consequences if biologists develop the ability to clone human beings by making identical copies of their cells? The goal of biology is to gain a better understanding of life. As our knowledge increases, however, so does our ability to manipulate the genetics of living things, including ourselves. In a democratic nation, all citizens are responsible for ensuring that the tools science has given us are used wisely. Are we prepared to help develop thoughtful and ethical practices and applications of our ability to modify the human genome?